Ladies and gentlemen, hey, hi, how you doing? Welcome back to the channel. Thank you so much for stopping by. I have spent a ton of time already in Black Ops 6 grinding out and leveling up a bunch of the best weapons in game, going over weapon stats, attachment stats, everything in between to give you guys some early starter class setups as you are diving in. That way you have a couple of weapons to keep your eye on, maybe some ones you want to focus on leveling up first or getting maxed out so you can go through and just try and go for some high kill gameplays, get some high streaks and everything like that. So we're going to dive right into our general class setup system here. First things first, I do want to go over the secondary, the melee, everything like that, perks and equipment. This is going to stay the same on pretty much every single setup. Admittedly, in multiplayer, you don't have to worry too much about a true secondary like a pistol, for instance. I've got the 9mm PM on my loadouts here. Rarely am I actually using this. Most times after I get my first or second kill in a life, if applicable, I'm going up and I'm picking up that enemy's weapon. That way I have basically makeshift overkill, right? But as a secondary here, you can mix and match pistols. Like, there are some decent ones. The 9mm PM is particularly good, it seems like, but truly I think the secondary as a pistol, at least unless you're using overkill or something, is not super necessary in most multiplayer situations, right? You have your base melee as well. You could always have this out. You can pull this out to have a faster sprint as you're running around, which obviously is super clutch as well. Getting into some gear here, as far as tacticals go, from a competitive standpoint, I love the stim shot. Being able to heal on the fly when I want is just super clutch. That said, flashbangs also very strong this year. Concussions are also very strong this year as well. So if that's more your style and you prefer to have some throwables as opposed to a stim, you could definitely, switch over to those. For lethals, I think you also got some really good choices. I personally prefer Semtexes. Frags, though, are also very strong this year. And then even just going through some other ones like the thermal grenade, I've noticed, especially like in objective modes, can be really good, as can the Molotov too. Or if you're someone who enjoys, throwing a combat axe around, that's viable too. This is more so geared towards what you enjoy using and what you're looking for out of a lethal equipment. But like I said, Semtexes are kind of my go-to there. For field upgrades, there's two that really stand out to me. Sleeper Agent is obviously a clutch one. This being able to basically hide you as a enemy and make it appear as if you're one of their teammates. You're basically switching teams, but only for the enemy POV. That's clutch. Also, Warcry is pretty cool too. This gives you improved nearby ally movement speed and health regen, so it's almost like a stim shot in and of itself. So that's solid. And then also Acoustic Amp, giving you a temporary audio boost to hear enemy footsteps better. Those big three there, basically you can pick your poison between those and they're all going to be really good. Getting into perks here, my big thing is using the Perk Greed wildcard. Really, I think Gunfighter for extra attachments, then Perk Greed are the two biggest standout wild cards here in multiplayer. And for me, just because of how good attachments are in general, Perk Greed really stands out, especially if you are a more aggressive movement oriented player, right? Because I, for one, really want the Enforcer specialty. If I go ahead and I switch over to the face cam here, you'll see killing enemies grants a temporary buff to movement speed and health regen rate, which is wildly advantageous in my opinion. So that Enforcer specialty is something I'm always going after, but you need 3 red perks. Unfortunately, the perk 2 red perks in Assassin and Bruiser, I'm just not really a huge fan of. So instead, I opt for Perk Greed. That way in perk 1, I can still run Gung Ho, improves my sprint and tack sprint speeds. That's obviously super clutch. In perk 2, I can actually use forward intel, which increases my minimap and then also gives me direction indicators for enemies. Or I can use fast hands. I really like this as well for the faster swap speed. And then in perk 3, I can use double time, another red perk obviously, for greater duration and tack sprint. And then through Perk Greed, I can end up using dexterity, which is usually a perk 1 perk, and then reduce weapon motion while jumping, sliding, and diving, and you take less fall damage as well. So I'm still getting 3 red perks and activating that Enforcer specialty, plus I get forward intel or whatever perk 2 perk I want to mess around with there. So in my opinion, that is a really clutch way to go about it and maximize your secondary, your perks, and your equipment, everything going on there. But now let's focus purely on our primaries, 5 weapons that are going to absolutely fry, starting first with the C9. And because of advanced stats this year, we'll have the face cam up here so you guys can see everything we're talking about. The C9 as an SMG is phenomenal, quite frankly. This build in particular is low recoil and it is a quick killing option. It has decent range, it's super snappy and aggressive. I personally really like the long barrel on here first and foremost, going to obviously help out with that base damage range and extend that out some. So we end up having a 16 meter effective damage range and a 35-meter longer range there, which is really, really effective in my opinion. You already have a base velocity of 550, which is really solid in general, so loving the feel of that on there. I do just personally go for extended mag 1 here. This is going to up our mag size to 40. I personally prefer this as opposed to like extended mag 2, which is going to slow down your ADS and your sprint to fire a little bit there. I'd like to keep this as snappy and aggressive as possible, so for me, extended mag 1 is going to be a really, really good choice outright. The ergonomic grip, quite frankly, might be the best option in the entire game for one singular attachment in terms of what it's doing and how effective it is. This is obviously helping out with slide to fire, dive to fire, and ADS. And you can see it's going to end up going through increasing our ADS speed and our slide to fire speed. So if you are someone who is consistently slide canceling and using that as a movement mechanic, this is so insanely good for you. It's going to make you feel a lot more snappy and a lot more aggressive as you are tethering together movement. I also really enjoy no stock on here too. With this, we're getting better base movement speed and better strafe movement speed as well. So it's not going to impact like actual ADS movement speed, like something like, for instance, the Infiltrator stock would, which is purely based around that. But with no stock here, you are just always moving fast when you're not ADS'd. So I do really like the feel of that. Plus, it's not hurting your recoil, which is a huge W in my opinion. That said, I also think the balanced stock is really good here too. It's going to help out with strafe speed and then also some general movement speed, some general strafe speed as well. So it's not going to do as much there as no stock would, but still really good too. So you can go back and forth there and kind of pick your poison. And then lastly, recoil springs is basically free horizontal and vertical control there. If we look at the advanced stats, 10% across the board to horizontal, vertical, and recoil gun kick. That is really, really clutch in my opinion. So love the feel of that. And that's actually something I rock on a lot of different weapons just because it's so effective and basically has no cons. So the C9 with this setup is aggressive, easy, and a super quick killer. Next up here, I've got the AK-74. This thing is a heavy hitting rifle. It has one of the better TTKs in the rifle category, especially over range. This setup is more so focused on control because there is some noticeable recoil on this gun, but if you can get that pattern down and land shots on target, this thing absolutely melts. It is one of the best damage rifles that we have in the game at the moment. So initially here, I'm not a fan of the optics whatsoever, the base iron sights on this thing. So I personally go for something like a Merlin Mini. That's what I was using as I was leveling it up, and I'm pretty comfortable with that. I think the Kepler Reflex is a really good choice too, but as always with optics here, this is a personal preference thing. You might really love the Merlin Reflex or, you know, the AccuSpot Reflex or something, right? And if there's a certain optic you really enjoy the look of or the feel of, you find yourself to be very accurate with, go ahead, run that. For me, it was the Merlin in this case, and I also, like I said, really like the Kepler as well. So those are probably the two that I'll bounce back and forth with the most. The Ranger foregrip on here, helping out with some horizontal control, but also some sprinting movement speed. Obviously, this being a rifle, it's a little bit slower than some SMGs or some other options. So if we can speed it up some, that's a huge W in my opinion. And then also, obviously, helping out with that recoil control too is going to be really, really clutch. Extended mag 1 here as well. It ups our mag size to 40. I feel like you do burn through ammo with this thing decently quick. Like, we have a 652 RPM. That's solid for a rifle, right? So just having that extra ammo to me is pretty clutch and definitely saved my life in several situations where I had those few extra bullets because it doesn't take many to put down a player with this. Ergonomic grip here as well, just because it works so well with Omni movement as a system. Slide to fire, dive to fire, ADS speed increases across the board there. And then yet again, recoil springs on here too. As mentioned, considering the AK-74 does have a little bit more recoil, the fact that we can help it out some here with the recoil springs basically for free is really solid. And like when you stack that with Ranger foregrip, for instance, it feels really, really good. I think precision is also a solid alternative as well for what it's worth. So if you don't really love the pattern with Ranger, you could opt for precision and see if that maybe feels a little bit more consistent for you. But AK-74, as mentioned, again, an option that I'm feeling really, really comfortable with right now. And by the way, as we are going through all the weapons and setups here today, if you enjoy the video or if you find it helpful at all, a like rating would be seriously appreciated. And of course, if you're new to the channel or if you have not subscribed yet, every single day I got you covered with news, updates, patch notes, and meta breakdowns like this for Black Ops 6 and Warzone. So if you want to make sure you are always in the know, feel free to hit that subscribe button, turn on those post notifications. Gotta say, huge thank you to everyone who's been tuning in since the launch of Black Ops 6. Bunch of new viewers and new subscribers, so if that's you, I really do appreciate you supporting the channel. Anyways, next up here, we've got another option. This is maybe my favorite SMG at the moment. It is the KSV. feels very similar to like an AK-74U in my opinion. Really enjoying the feel of this. It is an aggressive SMG that has pretty solid range and a super quick TTK as well for this game. So with this initially, again, I'm going for the long barrel, similar to what we saw earlier. Just extending a damage range on an SMG I think is super clutch. We're out to a 14 meter effective damage range, 37 for that min range. Like, that is really solid and pretty much going to cover all the main gunfights you'd realistically be taking with an SMG like this. I also go for the precision underbarrel here as well, the precision foregrip. I did test this out quite a few times with different foregrips here, seeing what I liked the overall feel of this versus maybe a compensator, and I definitely felt like my recoil was the most stable when I was running the precision foregrip here. So even though it's not mobility based like some other choices might be, for accuracy, which is obviously the most important thing, you're not going to kill anybody if you can't hit your shots, this was a huge benefit in my opinion. Extended mag 1 on here, yet again upping our mag size to 40. That works fine there. Ergonomic rear grip on here yet again as well for slide, dive, and ADS speed increases, and then also recoil springs once more as well for that free control there. So a bit more of a copy and paste style setup here, but hey, if it ain't broke, don't fix it. The feel of this was incredibly consistent for me. Hey everyone, just a quick little heads up. I did want to let you know that right now G Fuel is hosting a Fear Fest buy one get one free event. So if you are like me, you're jumping into Black Ops 6, you're grinding a ton, leveling up your weapons, grinding out camos, going for prestiges, whatever the case may be, you want to stay hydrated and energized, G Fuel has you covered, and there is no better deal than buy one get one free on the tubs. So if you're interested, a link for that will be down in the description below. Definitely take advantage of that major discount. Now, setup number 4 is going to feature the XM4, the first gun I got gold. And while I wanted to feature this one on here, I do want to note, like, the XM4 is not the #1 absolute best rifle in the game by any means. This is more so the do-it-all rifle, and I especially wanted to feature this in a setup video early on because most of you are probably jumping right in, and the first gun you get is the XM4. So as you're leveling it up, I wanted to optimize that setup for you, and a lot of you guys might be going after this for like your first gold camo if you're like me, right? But it's nice because this is, I would say, pretty close in comparison to something like a Kilo from Warzone 1, right? Where it's not going to stand out in one particular area like so much more than any other gun. It's just going to be super consistent throughout as you're going through all the damage ranges. It's a decently aggressive rifle, especially with this build on here. Very easy to use as well. So initially here again, not too huge on the default iron sights. So the accused spot reflex is what I was using when I was leveling up. I do like the look of this one as well. But again, Merlin Mini and then also Kepler Microflex are ones that I'm sort of cycling in and out of in my rotation too. So your preference there, always go for that. Long barrel I felt really good with here too, just for that effective damage range boost. We're obviously out to a 9.8 meter effective damage range, which is strange for a rifle, but then your damage beyond range is 64 meters, so you don't have much of a drop off there in the mid-range area. That said, I think reinforced is a good option too. It's going to up your velo even more, so if you're a consistent like 6v6 exclusive player, you're not playing any of like the face-off mosh pits that are super close quarters, and you're more so geared around maybe some of the larger maps like Vorkuta, for instance, you might want to adjust this if you see that in the rotation just to get some extra velo on there and it be a bit more consistent over the longer range. I did like to feel the precision here as well, just for the idle sway and the horizontal recoil control benefits. Made the recoil pattern feel a lot more stable there. Ergonomic rear grip yet again for the mobility increases, just makes this a lot more aggressive. Then so does light stock as well, better movement and then also some better strafe speed. Liked the feel of that. I think again though, balanced stock is a really good choice too. It's not going to do as much for your base strafing speed as you're going left to right, but then will also help out with actual ADS strafe and then a little bit of movement as well. So you can see it's a little bit slower there for some other stuff, but also the general ADS strafe is good too. So I think you can go back and forth between those. This is so easy that I don't feel like you necessarily need something like the recoil springs in this case. But yeah, this setup aggressive for a rifle especially, then also so easy. So it's checking all the right boxes. And then to close things out here, of course, we saw this in the beta like crazy, and yes, it's still good here at launch, the Jackal PDW. It's an SMG that has an incredibly good range in specific. Like its close range TTK is not necessarily the fastest in the game, but it's going to outgun other options as you get into some range here, while also being super low recoil and a weapon that we're all plenty familiar with. Like if you've got the Vault Edition Blueprint that's got the super clean iron sights, we all know how that felt back in the beta, then even the base one here is super consistent as well. Again, precision foregrip on here, just making sure that recoil pattern is super predictable and easy to maintain. The extended Mag 1 option, yet again, 40 is just fine for this rate of fire in my opinion. Ergonomic rear grip for the better slide, dive to fire speeds, then also the better ADS speed. Balanced stock here definitely for the better strafe, the better movement, the better general strafe as well when you're going left to right there, so you can definitely break some ankles with that being a factor. And then also recoil springs makes it easy. I think the main thing with this is that you want to focus on control because the TTK is so good that as long as you're accurate, you're going to be set, you're going to be able to go through and just absolutely fry enemies. So between these 5 weapons, you've got quite a few very fun builds to start out on. You might have some blueprints already unlocked for some of these weapons, so you can get using them a bit earlier on than others. Obviously not the only 5 guns that are good, and we'll be covering plenty of other meta class setups and best weapon videos here in the near future. So if you want to stick around for that, or just everything else going on in COD, whether you want to stay up to date with the news, the updates, the patch notes, tips and tricks, everything like that is here on a daily basis. So feel free to hit that subscribe button, turn on those post notifications, and join us on the road to 1 million subscribers. And if you enjoyed the video, a like rating on your way out would be really appreciated. But once again, thank you so much for tuning in, and until next time, take it easy, have an awesome rest of your day, and I'll catch you later. Peace out.